Viewer discretion is advised. This story contains graphic and disturbing details revealed at the end. If you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious told in a gripping cinematic way, you're in the right place. We dive deep into stories like this 3 or 4 times a week, so if that's your thing, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single one. Alright, let's get into it. Picture this. It's February 1st, 2012, in Anchorage, Alaska. The air is so cold it stings your face, and the snow crunches underfoot in a way that feels like the world's holding its breath. The city's quiet, tucked away under a blanket of winter, and most folks are indoors, staying warm. But at a little teal-colored coffee kiosk called Common Grounds, nestled in a snowy parking lot off a busy 4-lane highway, an 18-year-old barista named Samantha Koenig is working the night shift. She's alone, pouring coffee, wiping down counters, and flashing her bright smile at the occasional customer braving the cold for a latte. Samantha's only been on the job for a month, but she's a natural, responsible, dependable, the kind of person who makes you feel like everything's gonna be okay. But tonight, something's off. The parking lot outside is dark, the streetlights casting long, eerie shadows across the snow. And as Samantha hands a customer their drink through the kiosk's window, something happens. Something that will unravel into one of the most chilling crime stories Anchorage has ever seen. Let's rewind a bit. Samantha's day had already been rough. She'd gotten into a nasty fight with her boyfriend, Dwayne, over text. It was one of those arguments that spirals, accusations flying, feelings hurt. She thought he might be cheating, and his dismissive replies only made it worse. By the time her shift started at Common Grounds, she was probably still reeling, trying to focus on steaming milk and taking orders while her heart was heavy. Dwayne was supposed to pick her up at 8 when her shift ended, but he got held up at work. By the time he pulled into the parking lot at 8:30, the kiosk was dark, locked up tight, and Samantha was nowhere to be seen. Dwayne stepped out of his truck into the biting cold, his breath clouding in the air. He walked up to the kiosk's window, pressed his face against the glass, and peered inside. Nothing. No Samantha, no lights, no sign of life. His stomach twisted. Maybe she was still mad about their fight, he thought. Maybe she called her dad, James, for a ride, or hitched one with a friend. Still, it didn't sit right. He sent her a quick text. "You okay? Where are you?" No reply. Minutes ticked by and the silence felt heavier with every second. Worried, Dwayne drove to Samantha's house, where she lived with her dad, James, a single father who had raised her since she was 2. They were tight, the kind of father-daughter duo who shared everything. When Dwayne knocked on the door and explained that Samantha wasn't at the kiosk, James's face fell. "She's not here," he said, his voice tight with worry. "I haven't heard from her." They sat down at the kitchen table, calling and texting Samantha over and over, hoping for a response. Then, Dwayne's phone lit up with a message from her number. It was short, curt, and strange. She was upset, needed space, and was staying with friends for a couple of days. She asked Dwayne to tell her dad. James read the text and frowned. This wasn't like Samantha. She'd never ghost him like this, especially not when he was clearly worried. She wouldn't just vanish without a word to him directly. Something was wrong, very wrong. The next morning, February 2nd, a young barista arrived at Common Grounds to open the kiosk. He parked his car, walked up to the employee entrance, and fumbled with his keys. But when he tried to unlock the door, it was already open. That's weird, he thought. Samantha had closed up last night, and she wasn't the type to forget something like locking the door. Shrugging it off, he stepped inside, and his eyes widened. The place was a mess. Napkins scattered on the floor, towels strewn about, cups left out like someone had just walked away mid-shift. He crossed to the cash register, inserted his key, and froze. It was already unlocked, and the cash tray was empty. His heart sank. This wasn't just a sloppy close-up. They'd been robbed. He called his boss, who called the police. Meanwhile, James, now frantic, filed a missing person report for Samantha. The Anchorage Police Department swung into action, contacting the kiosk's owner to get security footage from the night before. Officers also reached out to Samantha's friends and family, but no one had seen or heard from her. The police headed to the kiosk to investigate, expecting signs of a struggle, but found nothing. No broken glass, no blood, no chaos. There was a panic button under the counter, untouched. To the cops, it started to look like Samantha might have taken the money and run. After all, that text to Dwayne suggested she was upset and needed time away. But James wasn't buying it. That text didn't sound like his daughter, and the idea of her stealing didn't add up. Plus, how would she have left? She didn't have a car that night, and Anchorage's freezing streets aren't exactly walkable. If she was with friends, why hadn't any of them heard from her? Then, the security footage arrived, and it changed everything. The grainy video, time-stamped 8 March on February 1st, showed Samantha working alone in the kiosk. Her movements cheerful and routine. She's pouring drinks, wiping counters, completely unaware of what's coming. Then, a figure approaches the window, someone just out of the camera's frame. Samantha takes their order, turns to make a drink, and hands it over. But when she does, her face changes. She steps back, hands raised, fear flashing in her eyes. Seconds later, she turns off the kiosk's lights, drops to her knees, and faces away from the window, frozen. For a full minute, she doesn't move. Then, slowly, she stands, walks to the cash register, scoops out the money, and passes it through the window to a shadowy figure outside. A man, judging by his build, wearing a sweatshirt and a hat pulled low. 2 agonizing minutes pass. Then, the man leans through the window, his upper body filling the frame. He's tying Samantha's hands. Grainy footage makes it impossible to see his face clearly. He climbs inside, shuts the window, and pulls out a gun. With it pressed into Samantha's back, he forces her out the employee door, across the snowy parking lot, and into a white pickup truck. They drive off, swallowed by the night. The police and the FBI, now involved, were stunned. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a runaway teen. Samantha had been kidnapped. But who was this man? And where was she now? Over the next few days, Anchorage rallied around Samantha's case. James, heartbroken but relentless, organized search parties, plastering the city with flyers. The story hit national news, and strangers donated thousands to a reward fund for any information on Samantha's whereabouts. But despite the growing attention, no leads emerged. The trail was cold, the surveillance footage too grainy to identify the kidnapper. Samantha's phone was silent, and she hadn't contacted Dwayne or James since that strange text. Then, on February 24th, 3 weeks after her disappearance, a breakthrough. Dwayne received another text from Samantha's phone, directing him to a sign in a nearby public park. He and James raced to the spot, beating the police by 15 minutes. There, tacked to a bulletin board in a Ziploc bag, was a typed ransom note. Inside, a chilling black and white photo. Samantha, her face blank and dazed, staring just past the camera. Next to her, a man held up a copy of the Anchorage Daily News dated February 13th, proof she was alive, at least as of that date. The note demanded $30,000 be deposited into Samantha's bank account, promising her release in 6 months. James, guided by the FBI, deposited part of the money, and the feds watched the account closely. Days later, 3 withdrawals were made in Anchorage. Each time, the FBI rushed to the ATMs, but the man, wearing a ski mask and sunglasses, was gone before they arrived. The account went quiet for over a week. Then, on March 7th, more withdrawals popped up, this time in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Again, the suspect slipped away, but a Texas ATM camera caught something new, a white Ford Focus speeding east. Authorities issued an alert, and on March 13th, a Texas patrolman spotted the car in a hotel parking lot. He tailed it, waiting for a reason to pull it over. When the driver went 2 miles over the speed limit, the patrolman pounced. The driver, calm and composed, handed over an Alaskan license. His name was Israel Keys, 34, from Anchorage. A search of his car turned up a ski mask, clothes matching the ATM suspect's description, a gun, and, most damning, Samantha's phone and debit card. Keys was arrested, and the truth began to unravel. In custody, Keys initially denied everything, but faced with overwhelming evidence, he asked for an Americano, a peanut butter Snickers, and a cigar. Once he had them, he started talking, and what he revealed was beyond horrifying. The FBI has never released the full transcript, but here's what we know. February 1st, Keys walked up to Common Grounds planning a simple robbery. But when he saw Samantha, young and alone, his plan twisted into something darker. He ordered a coffee, and as she handed it to him, he pulled a gun, demanding the cash. Terrified, Samantha complied, handing over the money and kneeling as ordered. Keyes climbed through the window, stuffed napkins in her mouth to silence her, and tied her hands. He marched her to his white pickup truck, warning her that any attempt to escape would end in her death. She was scared but compliant, clinging to hope. Keyes drove her around Anchorage for hours, stopping occasionally to let her relieve herself or to smoke a cigar. He used her phone to send that text to Dwayne, buying time. Samantha, desperate, told him her family was poor, that he'd get no ransom. Keyes brushed it off, saying they'd find a way. Around midnight, he pulled into his driveway, where his girlfriend and 10-year-old daughter slept inside. He hid Samantha under tarps in the back seat, then led her, blindfolded, to a shed in his backyard. There, he tied her to a wall, with a rope around her neck, turned up a radio to mask any noise, and left her with cigarettes and a space heater, promising she'd be fine once the ransom was paid. Inside his house, Keyes drank wine, checked on his sleeping family, and prepared for a luxury cruise with his daughter, set to leave in a few hours. He returned to the shed once, giving Samantha water, and reassuring her the ransom was on track. Then, in a cruel twist, he untied her briefly, letting her think she might be freed, only to bind her even tighter. Her face, he later said, showed total resignation. She knew. What happened next is too graphic to fully describe. Keyes assaulted Samantha in the shed, then, just before 4 a.m., stabbed her in the back and choked her until she stopped moving. She never screamed. He locked her body in the shed, showered, woke his daughter, and took her to the airport for their 2-week New Orleans vacation. When Keyes returned, he staged the ransom photo, dressing Samantha's body, braiding her hair, and stitching her eyelids open to make her appear alive. He disposed of her remains in a frozen lake, dismembered to erase any trace. The ransom, the texts, all of it was a lie to toy with her hope and cover his tracks. Samantha wasn't Israel Keyes' only target. He was a dangerous man who hunted random people across the country. Before each attack, he buried hidden kits filled with tools and supplies. They waited underground until the day he decided to use them. He admitted to hurting an older couple in Vermont, but he hinted there were more victims, maybe around 11. Police later found a strange drawing in his jail cell that hinted at that number. In December 2012, while in custody, Keyes ended his life. He left behind mystery, fear, and many unanswered questions. Samantha's father, James, and the Anchorage community were left grappling with grief and horror. The bright, responsible 18-year-old who loved her job and her family was gone, her life stolen by a monster who thrived on control and deception. Her story lingers as a haunting reminder of the evil that can hide in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. If you're still with me, thank you for listening to Samantha's story. If you found the hidden detail in this video, drop it in the comments with the timestamp, and if you're the first, we'll pin your comment to the top. If you want more stories like this, hit that like button, maybe swap its coffee for a shot of espresso, and subscribe with notifications on. You can also find me on Instagram or Twitter at Buried416, or check out my TikTok and second YouTube channel, Buried, for more content. Until next time, stay safe out there. See ya.